Hello, 21st century educators, and welcome to another video where we will be talking about gamifying your classroom in the midst of a pandemic. Because we are still in a pandemic, although some of us have returned to the physical space, and we may be wondering, how do we now gamify our classes? But before we get into it, remember to like and subscribe to our channel so that you do not miss out on any of our upcoming videos. So let's start, first of all, with reminding ourselves about what gamification actually means. And this is a definition provided by Dan Vigilito. So gamification is the application of typical elements of game playing to other areas of activity. For example, things that we normally do: point scoring, competition with others, and generally having rules of play. And of course, we have all played games at one point or another, and we know that games are a structured form of play that makes us happy and excited. And who doesn't want happy and enthusiastic students in the classroom? But beyond the emotional appeal, games also encourage social interaction and stress relief and help us to have fun while learning simultaneously. So games are generally agreed upon as a great way for students to actually learn. And we know this, but what about in the midst of a pandemic, in the midst of COVID-19? Let's talk about gamification in the midst of COVID-19, where some of us are still teaching remotely, or some of us have gone back into school but now have to consider social distancing. How can we gamify our classes? And with so many demands placed on educators right now, it seems sometimes like games might be more of a distraction, a bigger headache to deal with, rather than a productive instructional tool, right? I know many teachers who tend to stay away from games because they think it will end in noise and chaos. Additionally, that it takes time to plan. And of course, always thinking, when am I actually going to end up completing my curriculum? And on top of that, now we have to think about social distancing, cleaning surfaces, dealing with those black boxes if we're on Zoom. Maybe I think I'll stick to what I usually do. Would be I could imagine some responses from teachers. But let's talk about the benefits of games in the classroom. Research actually shows that games are extremely beneficial. And we're not going to get into all of the research here, but Albert Einstein actually quoted that play is the highest form of research. And when we participate in games, we know that it stimulates us. Our body releases a hormone known as endorphins, and we achieve the same effect by playing games that challenge learners or give them the chance to earn a particular reward, even if that reward is as simple as moving on to the next level. And when these endorphins are released, the learners tend to have more fun during the learning process, and most importantly, they retain more information. And we know that endorphins also bring on feelings of calm and well-being. And this sense of well-being is even more critical during this period, because studies are showing that the pandemic has had a serious toll on our students' mental health and well-being. And therefore, games is one of the ways in which we can ensure that the classroom is a nice, safe space to encourage our students to really work on their mental health while doing their academics. Additionally, students who did not have consistent access to their classroom because of the lockdown due to maybe inefficient Wi-Fi access or inadequate digital devices, we need to now be able to motivate these students again to take charge of their learning, to want to participate in their learning. And playing in the classroom provides that self-motivation to several students. Additionally, games allow our students to compete and socialize with other classmates, an aspect which of course the pandemic threatened to remove from the classroom. And it's also a fantastic way to encourage collaboration and teamwork. And while playing educational games, children learn the critical lesson of teamwork, which of course is very important generally for us to become good human beings and learn to respect each other in a space. And of course, again, it decreases stress. There were actually studies done by Google on that dino game, which requires no internet that we sometimes play on Google. And it actually showed that gamers had lower levels of stress. So games are generally very beneficial, and even more so during the pandemic. But there's one more that I'm sure many of you have not thought about. Games actually increases your mental acuity. That's right. Playing content-specific games can actually boost your memory. As students play, they remember more details as they interact and pay more attention because it's play. They actually forget, learning is taking place. So because of the reduced stress, they actually retain more. And because they're using their working memory to think quickly, it also helps in terms of retaining of information. And I'm sure by now you're thinking all of this sounds great, and maybe pre-pandemic you would have been gamifying your class, but no way are you going to do this online or in socially distanced classrooms. Well, I'm hoping that by the end of the session, you're going to change your mind. So let's start talking a little bit about the online setting. So for those of you who are still teaching remotely, there are many digital games that you can play with your students, such as quizzes, Kahoot, GimKit, Booklet. You can make escape rooms and other games in Genially, PowerPoint, Google Slides. You can even convert traditional games such as tic-tac-toe, Pictionary, Spelling Bees, Guess Who into your virtual space. And you can even create mundane tasks such as answering questions into games by just adding points, badges, or other awards for doing so. You can even give class points or deductions for homework submissions, etc. And of course, I have a whole video, a YouTube video, that I share a ton of ideas on how to do games in a remote setting. And I've placed the link below this video that you can go check out. So let's now talk about socially distanced games. Of course, returning to the physical classroom does not mean getting rid of all the digital tools which we mentioned. And that's once you have your internet access, your students have their digital devices, you can continue playing these games. Now, even if you do not have the internet, there are games such as Family Feud, Jeopardy, which you can play via PowerPoint, or even if you don't have access to digital devices or you don't have access to projector, you can actually play these games using the normal whiteboard. And you can allow competition and collaboration at a safe distance. So there's another game that I want to introduce you to, and this is called Four Corners. Basically, as the name suggests, it's where four students go to various corners of the classroom and they respond to a question or statement which they have to debate. They're given a timer and each must present a selected number of ideas before time runs out. So this game is really excellent for critical thinking, and it allows it to be fun. It allows movement in the classroom as well, and it's socially distanced. Pictionary is also a great way to keep socially distanced and incorporate games in the classroom. You can create a list of words your students have to draw and get their classmates to figure out the concept. Bonus points added if they can provide a definition or a synonym or maybe an alternative to what was presented. There's also the stand, sit game, where students are asked a question and instead of giving A, B, C, D as their response, they stand or they sit or maybe they raise their right hand, left hand. You can come up with variations to this game where basically they are answering the question, but in a gamified format. And there's one more that I would like to discuss, and that is hot seat combined with taboo. So we know in hot seat in the traditional game, one student sits on a seat and they ask a rapid fire set of questions. But in this version, we would want the student to bring their seat to the front of their class to avoid cross-contamination, so we wouldn't have one seat. And we can ask the students to present statements which give a clue to particular questions. Now, you would have a predetermined set of words that the students are not allowed to say. That's like in taboo. And you can use this to test vocabulary. It's a great way to actually check for understanding to see if your students actually know how to explain what they want, to elicit answers from the person in the hot seat. It's an excellent way to get entire class participation. You can even give points to students who are able to come up with the best prompts to get the person in the hot seat to get the answer. And there are a lot more games which you can use that can still be socially distanced. And I've actually presented a document in the link below, which you can go on and check for some of the things I would have discussed today. But before you go, there's one more thing. If you are going to gamify your class, then ensure that you start small. Think about the objective of the class and how you will use the game to fulfill that role. Ensure that you play the game before so you actually know what to expect. Have a clear set of rules for predictable situations. And of course, always leave time for a brief recap. If in the middle of the game, you need to stop to give explanations, feel free. If there's a concept you recognize that your students didn't quite get, go ahead and reinforce it by stopping the game and explaining. And remember to be prepared. So prepare all the necessary resources. Be a facilitator. Allow the students to have control over gameplay. Because remember, classroom management still counts. So don't forget to like our video and leave a comment if you thought this was useful. See you next time. Bye-bye.